Shedeur Sanders destroys college records in practice. Shedeur Sanders dropped a performance so unreal, Browns coaches froze mid-play, and now the NFL wants answers. Coaches are speechless. Give me 7 games, and give me the NFL where the Browns' OTAS continue today. This is a team that went from the playoffs in 23 and only 3 wins last year, and it seems to be commonplace for the Browns. Who's going to be the starting quarterback, and will they be good? Deshaun Watson is hurt. Kick it. Flacco is on the roster, as are the rookies Dillon Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders, and offensive coordinator Tommy Rees weighed in on the quarterbacks, starting with Shedeur. That's new on Sports Center.
He's worked his tail off. He's really putting in a lot of work, as all those guys are. But you could tell on the mental side of the game and learning the system and calling it and having that rhythm to it. He's put a lot of work and time and effort into that. And then when you do that, the game starts to slow down and you can focus on finding completions. And he's done it.
Being a food that tastes best cold. The whole NFL community is about to feel the heat from Shedeur Sanders, a quarterback who was selected 144 picks deep in the draft, as he just turned the thermostat up to blazing heights. More profound than athletes who entered Cleveland Browns practice without ever starting a collegiate game and performed an action that his coach was practically interrupting in the middle of. Jaws striking the grass. We're talking about throws that are changing the landscape of professional football, accuracy figures that are forcing seasoned professionals to doubt their own skills, and a performance so devastating that rumors are already beginning to circulate. If the Browns had happened onto their franchise savior by chance. Here's the catch, though. Not only was what transpired during that practice session amazing, but it was also unthinkable in history. You'll see why some coaches are referring to Shedeur's real impact on those college records as the most astounding practice performance they have ever seen when you hear it. I've covered the NFL for years, and I've witnessed my fair share of quarterback controversies, but what's going on in Cleveland at the moment? This isn't simply another tale from training camp. This is the type of event that permanently alters franchises. And don't assume you already know how this narrative will finish. Allow me to transport you back to April of 2025. Shedeur Sanders, the quarterback who passed for more than 8,000 yards in his final 2 college seasons, is still sitting in the green room as the second NFL draft night draws to a close. Nor chosen, nor desired. Kickers, long snappers, and men who spent 4 years on the bench are being drafted by teams. In the meantime, the most polished passer in the whole draft class is seeing his hopes dashed in front of him. Can you picture that sensation, Shedeur? Sanders is who you are. With an off-target percentage of 6.5%, you rank 3rd in all of college football. Because your balls are positioned so precisely that they hardly need to break stride, your receivers are adding yards after the catch. Other quarterbacks can't even try the throws you're completing. Despite this, 143 players are called before you. The rumors began early. The NFL is not a good fit for him. He is incapable of managing pressure. He is quite flashy. Nothing substantial. He was passed on by squad after team. No one had ever heard of the linebacker the Giants selected. A safety was taken by the Seahawks from a Division II school. The Cowboys chose a punter in place of a quarterback because they were in dire need of depth. This is where things start to get interesting, though. The Cleveland Browns watched as Sanders fell through the draft for free. They were learning. They were making plans, and they made the decision when the 144th overall pick, the 5th-round pick, finally arrived. Okay, Cleveland found themselves a backup quarterback for the future, a project, a maybe, someone to develop behind their established guys, was the general consensus when most people saw that selection. But what if I told you that this tale isn't really unfolding like that? Fast forward to training camp in July 2025. Berea, Ohio's Browns facility. It's just another ordinary summer morning. The weather that distinguishes men from boys is hot and muggy. There are several people in the quarterback room. You have the Super Bowl champion Joe Flacco. Former first-round pick Kenny Pickett. Cleveland selected Dillon Gabriel in the 3rd round. Then there is Shedeur Sanders, the man that nobody desired. As one might anticipate, the initial practices were routine. Sanders was settling into his groove, mastering the playbook, and becoming at ease with the receivers. Not really noteworthy, but solid. His arm power, accuracy, and football IQ wowed the coaches. However, remarkable and earth-shattering are two quite different things. After then, Tuesday morning, July 16th, arrived at a day that Browns supporters may want to mark on their calendars for all time. It began as usual: position work, individual exercises, and the standard procedure. However, something changed when they switched to team drills. Sanders had a distinct vibe as he entered the huddle. His teammates sensed it. The coaches witnessed it. Even the managers of the equipment halted. Everything we believed to be true about NFL quarterback development was contradicted by what they were doing to observe what transpired next. Sanders made his first 15 passes. 15 darts, 15 bullets, and 15 simple throws were inserted into windows so narrow that veteran NFL receivers were shaking their heads in shock. We're discussing throws that need precise ball placement, split-second timing, and an unteachable level of arm power. That isn't the record-breaking aspect, though. That is only a warm-up. The red zone exercise was when the actual pyrotechnics began. Quarterbacks typically have the greatest difficulty here. The field gets smaller. The windows become smaller. The strain increases. The majority of rookies, particularly those selected in the 5th round, only want to complete a few throws without making an interception. Shedeur Sanders completed 27 straight throws for touchdowns. I'll say it again. 27 touchdown throws in a row. Take it into consideration. In any NFL practice, the previous record for consecutive touchdown passes by a rookie or veteran was 16. Not only did Sanders shatter that record, but he also completely destroyed it. He buried it so deep in the ground out back that no one will ever find it again. Here's what makes this even crazier, though. These weren't simple slants to wide receivers or dump-offs to running backs. These were the throws of mature men. The rear shoulder disappears into the corner. Bullets via 3 different locations. Touch passes beneath safeties and over linebackers. The throws that win championships and are featured on highlight reels. The whole coaching staff was in a frenzy after one specific throw. Goal line, 3rd down, and strong pass rush pressure. Sanders moved into the pocket, sensed he flipped a flawless spiral to his receiver in the back corner of the end zone without even glancing at the rush coming from his blind side. Not much movement was required of the receiver. Like a rapt present, the ball fell into his hands. The head coach of the Browns, Kevin Stefanski, stood on the sidelines, his mouth agape. The offensive coordinator, or whomever was brought in to take Ken Dorsey's job, was hurriedly taking notes. Even the defensive players who had been burnt were approaching Sanders to offer their congratulations. There's more, though. Because it seems that Shedeur Sanders needed to shatter more than one record. The entire record book needed to be redone by him. Sanders completed 19 consecutive throws totaling 20 yards or more during the deep ball exercise. The earlier record, 12. He made every pass while rolling out of the pocket during the mobility exercise. He guided his team to 4 straight touchdown drives without a single incompletion during the 2-minute drill. That is the reason practice ended. Out of 70 passes, Sanders had completed 67 of them. That represents a 95.7% completion rate in an NFL practice with NFL-level stakes and pressure against an NFL defense. After practice, the locker area was unlike anything anybody had ever seen. Players with 10 or more years of experience were praising Sanders as though he was already a Hall of Famer. After pulling Sanders away, Joe Flacco, a Super Bowl champion and expert on all things NFL, informed him he had never seen anything like it. The thing that has folks talking, though, is this. It was more than simply the figures. It was the composure, confidence, and leadership that characterized Sanders. Demeanor. This was not an isolated incident with a worried rookie attempting to win over his coaches. This was a proclamation, a statement, and a message to all those who had passed him in the draft. Every Sunday, I'm going to remind you that you made a mistake. The repercussions have already begun. The league is hearing about it. Teams that passed on Sanders are subtly contacting Cleveland to discuss possible trade possibilities. According to reports, the Indianapolis Colts, who are in dire need of a quarterback, are prepared to pay a hefty price to obtain Sanders' rights. This is where things start to become very interesting, though. The Browns have no desire to trade him. Not even close. Because it wasn't just a fantastic day that transpired during that practice. It offered a preview of what lay ahead. A sneak peek at what's to come. Consider it. This quarterback was intended to be a developmental player. A project, and if all went according to plan, he might play in a few years. Instead, he's out there making throws that make coaches reevaluate everything they believed they understood about the position and shattering records that no one knew existed. That we haven't even discussed his college resume yet. In each of his previous 2 seasons, this quarterback passed for 4,000 yards. Who, in spite of playing behind an offensive line that offered him little more protection than a paper umbrella during a hurricane, completed 69% of his throws. Who, despite intense pressure from rival defenders and unrelenting criticism from the media and fans, guided Colorado to their finest season in years. His talent wasn't the reason for the draft drop. It has to do with politics, perception, and teams thinking too much and losing sight of reality, as well as witnessing Sanders' current level of performance. It's likely that the same teams are questioning how they failed to get the top quarterback in the draft. The question that keeps NFL executives up at night, though, is this one. Was this a one-time act, or is Shedeur Sanders always like this? Because the Cleveland Browns may have just discovered their franchise quarterback in the 5th round of the draft if this is his baseline and how he seems when he is just starting out. And for the next 10 years, every team that passed on him will be left wondering what could have been. It will be another 6 weeks until the 2025 season begins. The training camp is just getting started. There is still plenty more football to be played. However, it appears from Tuesday's practice that Shedeur Sanders is more than simply NFL ready. He is prepared to rule. It does. Oh, let me ask you a question. Was this only a glimmer in Cleveland's QB drought, or are we seeing the emergence of a superstar? More significantly, how do you believe the 31 clubs that passed on Sanders are currently feeling? Tell me in the comments section below. Additionally, as this narrative is only beginning, remember to subscribe.